tax. Then they were hit with the news that mortgage interest relief for those in mortgage arrears is now under threat.
Here with their advice on that topic, plus how much you'll be paying in next year's property tax, are our Property Watch experts, Angela Keegan from Myhome.ie and personal finance expert Carl Dieter from advisors.ie. You're both very welcome to the show.
Hi
there. Charlie Weston, in writing in The Independent earlier in the week, informed us of this, which I suppose is another kick for those who are struggling with mortgage arrears.
I think it depends on what way you look at it, Martin. Basically what The Independent reported yesterday, the day before, was that anyone who has stopped paying their mortgage, in other words, hasn't reached an agreement with their bank, the mortgage interest relief will be withdrawn. And when you think about it logically, they're not getting relief on something they're not paying. So while I think it grabbed a lot of headlines, I actually think people who are struggling to pay their mortgage perhaps might have an issue if those that are not paying their mortgage continue to get relief on something they're not paying.
Yeah, you can understand, Carl.
Yeah, when it comes to revenue, basically there's two things that they have. They have the ability to tax you, and they have the ability to give you various reliefs and exemptions. And equally, they wouldn't tax you on money you hadn't earned, so why would they give you relief on something you hadn't paid? And that's what it boils down to. It would be no different almost than seeking tax relief on doctor visits that you never went to. So it can seem a little hard-hearted by revenue, but in fact they're just obeying a very clear-cut mandate that they have, and it is the right thing to do from a revenue perspective. Yeah. I think from a borrower's perspective, if they find themselves in even worse shape now that this is going to happen, it can be very frustrating, but it's important to understand where it's coming from, and like I said, revenue are not going to tax you on income you didn't make, so they won't give you the relief.
We're talking about 65,000 people, I think, will now stop getting this relief.
I think the 65,000 people that are in arrears, only those that have stopped paying completely will no longer get the relief. And Revenue have also said where people start paying their mortgage again after 3 months payments, when they've agreed a payment plan with the bank as such, the relief will kick back in.
Now, the word you mentioned there is completely. There are those who are continue to get this tax relief if they've made some kind of an arrangement with them.
Anyone, again, what we understand from Revenue is anyone who has come to an arrangement with their bank, who's continues to pay an amount on a monthly basis, albeit not the full amount of the mortgage, but they've entered an agreement with the bank, they will continue to benefit from tax relief.
Okay. What if you're just paying interest only, Carl?
Well, the relief is actually based on the interest. People sometimes think that...
So if you're not paying any of the capital, you're still paying it's just interest only. Yeah, you will still continue to get
tax relief at source is based on mortgage interest. Yeah. And if you're doing a regular sort of repayment mortgage where you're paying what you've borrowed plus the interest, it's actually still just based on the interest. So it will be applied on whatever you are paying. Now, I think it's important, as Angela mentioned, that if you are doing 3 months of some kind of payment, you actually will get relief on that, even if it's only partial interest. They're not saying if you don't pay the full interest, you don't get anything. So I think really it's an incentive for people to find some way to pay the amount that they can pay, and for them and the banks to find an agreement with each other so that it can continue, because it's a good tax relief, and it will last until 2017.
How much is it worth to people? Up to about 4,000, is it?
It varies. At the top end, it can be worth, about... I'll have to work out the figures in my head. It just caught me off guard there. But up to about just over €300 a month. But you'd have to have borrowed a large sum to get that. So I'm trying to think for a kind of average property, really you're looking at around 1,000 to 1,200 is what most people will get off, and that's if you're buying around the 200,000 euro mark. So over the course of from now until 2017, that's €4,000 or €5,000 that it will make a big difference to people. It makes a big difference even if you don't have problems.
Well, it's a big difference now with this property tax that's going to come in. And what's the fallout going to be from that, Angela?
I think this is one we'll watch very closely. The market certainly has seen an upturn, and when I talk about an upturn, I talk about an increase in transactions. And we certainly have seen an increase in transactions. We're all watching the sold price register, and already this year we've surpassed the total number of transactions for the year last year. And I think it'll be really key to watch Q1 next year and see has the property tax dampened the enthusiasm, because it's certainly it's extra money we're all going to have to find it's being collected by revenue, so there'll be no escaping. There's absolutely, whether, you know, they will, for instance, if you're self-employed and haven't paid it, you'll find it difficult to get a tax clearance cert. If you're on social welfare, they have the option of holding back social welfare. So one thing we can be sure is it's going to be collected. It'll start from the 1st of July next year. So in 2013, we all will have to pay a half year, and anyone who owns a house is liable for it. So if you happen to, you know, have the luxury of owning a holiday home, you're going to have to pay it. If you've properties that you rent out, if you have an investment portfolio, you're liable, not the people renting the home. I think it is going to have an impact in the market, particularly in the early days, while people see how it potentially will impact. Will it impact on price is probably a question a lot of people are asking. And I think in some areas, believe it or not, but we do have a shortage of stock of the type of home that people are looking for. 3-4 bed semis, still absolutely the home of choice. And where you have a shortage of stock, I don't think it's going to impact that much. But where you have a number of, you know, similar type homes selling, I do think it potentially will have a negative impact on price.
1st of May we're due to make our valuations. So everybody's job will be to try and make out that their home is worth an awful lot less than they really think it's valued at.
Yeah.
For the next door neighbour who's trying to sell his or her home, that could be a real thorn, because they may want to get as much as they can for their property.
Well, what it boils down to is you're going to have a bill no matter what you do, and if you don't tell the truth on it, there's strong chances you're going to get fined. It's important to remember, with revenue backing this rather than local authorities who were in charge of the non-principal private residence, you've got the tax authority of the nation who are going to be the ones you have to answer to.
And if you don't pay it, they can stop it at source.
Not only if you don't pay, but they'll audit you. You see, the revenue have a very complex system, and if you're late for filing VAT returns, if you don't do everything on time, that throws up warning flags on their system, and that's why people get audited. We have clients, when they're audited, they say, geez, I wonder why they're picking on me. They're not picking on you. You're the one who told them to come looking for you by not filing your returns on time. And it'll be the same thing with property. And they will do individual audits. And that's something that I think people aren't aware of, is that revenue have huge powers that are I don't want to say obscene, but they're massive. I mean, customs are also part of revenue. They have the ability to attach, which means that if you have earnings and they rule against you, they can actually just go straight in quite rapidly and take money from your account. They can effectively take over your bank account. And that's why I tell people, just don't mess with revenue. Pick fights with other people in life. There's plenty of others that you can have disagreements with.
And there will be a fine if you don't pay it as well, presumably.
Absolutely.
You know?
And it's going to be, I think, I heard the number of €3,000 being mentioned is, you know, the kind of figure that they're going to go for if you're not telling the truth on your valuation.
And people out there who don't have houses who are renting may think they're going to get up, but actually I've heard from landlords who are thinking of passing it on to their tenants.
I think I'd expect to see rents, you know, to increase, because there's a lot of landlords who are, you know, barely making ends meet. Perhaps there's a lot who, you know, are absolutely doing fine, but there's plenty of people who bought thinking they were buying retirement properties or whatever, but bought investment portfolios at the height, who are looking to service mortgages, and they're going to look to tenants.
Which is terribly unfair, really, because they're the ones that own the property. Well, anyway, if anyone out there wants to calculate how much they're going to have to pay, Angela very kindly put a property tax calculator on the website, just to put everybody in a bad mood coming up to Christmas. But many thanks for both of you for coming on. And Carly, put the fear of God in everybody out there about the revenue.
I didn't mean to.
See, Big Brother really is watching.
You can be happy. It's Christmas time, and it's not until next year, so don't think about it.
Get your letter in March.
Thanks so much, both of you. Now, after the break, why a change in the law will allow humanist ceremonies have full legal status next year. See you back here in just